Hello, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a little bit of a different style. So to start out with, I'm voicing this entire thing over just because I was doing this on a Saturday night last minute, and honestly, all I wanted to do was just work on it, get it done, and get it back out to my customer as soon as I could. So what you're seeing here is I am trying to find the right bit for the pentalobe screws on the bottom of a MacBook Pro 15-inch. All right, we're back. So we're just starting now to take out the screws from the bottom cover of this machine. Now, I am playing this a little bit faster just because the actual process went pretty slow with this guy. This MacBook had actually had the screen replaced once before already, and more than half of the screws inside the bottom of the laptop where the screen attached were actually stripped out. So it was my job to make sure that I could actually get them out and get them out safely without ruining anything else. So you see I stuck that suction cup on the bottom and then kind of pulled forward. That's the best way to remove those pesky bottom covers, because they don't always just click right out like you would expect on those older MacBooks. The newer ones have kind of a slide mechanism, and I think I was trying to show you the dust on my hand after doing that. This computer was pretty filthy. So at this point, I am searching for another bit so I can actually get started on things. Bear with me through this. It's a brand new screwdriver set. I actually burnt the motor out of my last one, and so that's kind of why I keep looking at it like all confused. And I also hadn't charged it prior to doing this video, so I think it starts to run out of battery, like I want to say halfway through. So you'll see me even change out my battery, or not my battery, but my screwdriver to my manual one, just because I need to. But it's a little hard to see, but the first thing I'm taking out, and I've actually got this on a rubber, not a mod mat, but on a soldering mat with a bunch of little screw holes on it where I can just kind of organize the screws that I take out. So what I'm taking out right now is the cover for the actual display cable itself. And in doing so, it leaves me the capability to take off the connector for the screen. There's obviously a lot more that goes into it than that. There's a bunch of screws, so stay tuned and just enjoy watching me remove screws and me returning to work. I'm using my big screwdriver here just to pull some of those out because it's got a better magnet on it than the little screwdriver that I work with normally. And I think I'm just kind of trying to decide what my next move is going to be at this point. And what am I doing? So I'm starting by taking the Wi-Fi cables off the board so I can focus on removing the Wi-Fi antenna as a priority. The Wi-Fi antenna cables are a pain in the butt to reroute once you actually take them out. Mostly because they have to go through the actual frame of the laptop itself, but then also the motherboard, they like to go underneath of it. But we'll cross that road later. Pulling it out is actually relatively simple. Just a matter of getting the proper head on the screwdriver. And so right now, I transitioned back from that to removing all the core connectors around the display cable. Pretty much everything on that back side where I'm working right there is all core connectors. So it's like your webcam, all your backlight, everything like that. There's a bunch of little connectors. You don't have to disconnect all of the little connectors, but you do have to disconnect, just the primary display connector. Everything else is kind of built in, so, and then it all ends up running through the single connection point that I was just flipping up there. Okay, you can see me push down a little bit. The reason I'm pushing down is because those screws are stripped out. I've actually got my screwdriver speed here set to really low, as opposed to what it would normally be at, just because I don't want to further strip things and make it worse. And again, pushing down, just trying to get that leverage on that screw. Continuing on, you can see I'm lifting the covers in little bits and pieces, and I'm folding that display cable back so it's just kind of out of the way. You can start to see that I'm pulling some of the main. There's a whole strip actually when you remove the screen that houses all those connectors. Oh yeah, this thing was full of, it looked like cat fur. So that's me trying to show it to you, but my camera didn't focus properly. Also, I apologize for how gross my shirt looks. I had a day full of dog slobber and plant transplanting into different pots and everything, so I was doing different adventures prior to doing this. This is pretty much at the end of my day. It was, I want to say, like 9:30 p.m. Alright, I'm coming back in with the screwdriver. What else am I hitting? Okay, I'm hitting more of those. Now, these are screws that hold the entire cable assembly, or I guess you would call it the where all the ribbon cables attach to. That these screws hold that whole assembly down. There's actually a couple of little springs too that sit back there. Pushing down again because screws are stripped out. That was the biggest challenge of this, is that this was worked on previously, and it was, I cannot say that I have ever had as much of an issue. And okay, so now you're going to see me switch my screwdriver, and the reason being is I need to get a little bit more force on this one screw because the head was so stripped out. I need to push down and turn slower than my slow setting on my automatic screwdriver can deal with. That way it doesn't make it worse. And I had all the proper sized heads. Typically when you're doing this repair, you need a T4, a T5, a P2 for a pentalobe, and a P5 pentalobe. And that's really about it. No Phillips needed, nothing like that. Alright, so I managed to get that screw out. Miracle. And I'm searching for another head for my screwdriver. I'm not sure if this is where I transition over to the Wi-Fi card or what. Not the Wi-Fi card, the Wi-Fi antenna. Get the dust build up on those fans. Nice. I tackle that later too. Yep. Okay, so this is me transitioning over to the to removing the Wi-Fi antenna, and you'll see that I pull these screws out pretty quickly because I want to say there's 6 or 7 of them, teeny tiny little screws that hold this in. This is where you switch the head to a P2, the pentalobe 2 size, and then you can pull those out. And that side was perfectly easy, really simple. This is the side where I can tell that 2 of those original screws were actually lost, mostly because when it comes to, I think I hit like the 3rd screw and it's not the same kind of screw. Maybe it's the 4th screw. I think it's actually a T4. And so you'll see it spin, spin, spin. It's not doing anything. Oh, no, that wasn't it. Yeah, I skipped those 2. Okay, so it was 5 and 6. So screw number 7 comes out, and then screw number 8. Alright, so I have to hit 5 and 6 with that T4 again. And they come right out. They're little silver screws, the incorrect screw, but they work in there. When I tried to tell my customer that the screws were stripped out, he thought I meant the threads and not the heads. I actually think Apple does a pretty good job with the threads on the screws because I don't think I've ever stripped one out. But the heads are pretty weak. Alright, so what am I doing here? Oh yes, right now I'm taking off the hinge covers. So not every MacBook has these, and I've only seen it on the Pros, the newer Pros, I should say. But these MacBooks have hinge covers. They're little black, just little black covers that go on the hinges, and a screw goes through them too. You have two little, I want to say they're T4 screws as well, and you pull those out. And they pop right out. They're not usually a hassle. Though I did have one on a MacBook Pro 13-inch that I ended up having to drill out because I couldn't get it out. And they're kind of an elective part. They're not really a necessity. Nothing screws directly into them that needs to be on there. I don't know why they're even there. There's not. I guess there is one little ribbon cable that you probably would want to protect under there on these newer Macs that they've added. So here you can see me. I missed one screw on that other side. And so I'm always really careful with these just because they are very brittle, very small, and you don't want to pull without knowing what you're pulling on. On some of the MacBook Airs, I believe it is, they put a little bit of sticky tape on there. So that's when I usually take my little black spudger and stick it in between there and start pulling that out. Hopefully 45 minutes of video here is going to be fast enough for this. My dog is grumbling in the background. She's tired of hearing me talk. Okay, you can tell I got that Wi-Fi antenna pulled out. Now, basically the next part is me pulling the screen. So if there's any leftover screws that I need to still get out. Oh, yep. Yeah, so right now what I'm doing is test fitting my heads for this new screwdriver on the actual hinge screws themselves. So there's 6 of them. They're fairly basic black screws. They use the T9 size. So T4, T5, and T9 are the torque sizes you'll need if you want to do this replacement. I got one side done and hitting the other one now. Now I only sped this up to 1.5 times, so we're not looking at anything too crazy. Okay, that's done. Now, this is the part where you're going to see me lift up the computer. I'm sorry if it's not done quite right, but you're going to see me bend that out, and then the bottom pops right off of the screen. Super easy. The next part, not as easy. The next part is actually putting the screen back on the computer. But first I have to unwrap it from copious amounts of bubble wrap. You're going to see me powering it off. Typically, a lot of people do this with the battery pulled. It's good practice to pull the battery. I did not in this particular circumstance. Don't fault me for it. It's just something that sometimes I don't do. There's my puppy. She's saying goodnight to me. Yeah, sometimes she comes in and gets some pets just because she gets lonely. All right, you're going to see me pull up my Amazon box here. And you can usually buy screens on Amazon. That was me just showing that my mom's knife that she got me is what I was using to cut the box open. I'm going to feature it every once in a while here. So, of course, it's Amazon, so a box within a box. So cut the U-line box open. And the packaging on this was not what I'm used to. I usually get my screens from 7Puppy on Amazon, but this was another place that had a little bit faster shipping this time. So I went with a different vendor for a screen replacement. And the copious amounts of bubble wrap, that's pretty normal. That is actually what I usually see. That's mostly from eBay is when I see that, but... Flippity-doo-dah. Alright, and it's in a little bubble wrap sleeve. But, here's the real kicker. They shrink wrapped it. And that was kind of annoying because I wanted to pull the shrink wrap off safely and it didn't have a good starting point. I tried to find it. It wouldn't come undone. It's right there on the back, and you can see I try to pull it, and my fingers are just too chubby. There you go. So eventually I just ripped into it, and it's a thin layer, so it's not awful, but when you get back towards the actual front of the screen, I don't want to flex it too much. You know, if you flex it, you'll break that LCD, and that's the opposite of what you want to do. So eventually... set it back down like a smart human. There you go. I pull that part up. Take my knife and I slice. You'll notice I'm making it a point not to touch the screen. And there you go. The screen is free. So this is the new screen. Man, that little spot of slobber on my shirt is really bothering me. It's just dog slobber, that's all it is. But it's like, because you saw my dog. She's a big fluffy Newfoundland, so she gets a lot of slobber. Alright, so what I'm doing here is just basically making sure that that's pulled out of the way. Prepping this to actually install it is, like I said, kind of the tricky part. Those hinges, they don't bend down very easily. And you want to make sure that you're not putting too much pressure, again, on the LCD. So I laid the LCD down the same way that it was laid down prior. And then I tried to basically, this is pretty much all you're going to see for maybe the next 30 seconds or so. Because I got to get that in there just right. And get those hinges into their little compartments. And then while I do that, I try to install a screw, because if you can get the screw installed while it's sitting upright like this, then it can typically fold down itself. But it's really, really tough to do. There's no way to really hold it up unless you can install the screw one-handed, and I didn't have a third hand, so... And the screw just didn't want to stay aligned. I realize that this is not the best perspective, so I do apologize for that. But, you know, I'm trying to give you a really good desk perspective, and I've got one really good webcam here. And the one really good webcam delivers one really good image. So I'll just have to invest and buy a couple more of them. Alright, so at this point I gave up and I started pushing the hinges down while pushing the actual Mac down to the body of the computer. Alright, so you can see I've got the hinges pushed down. I'm working on pushing that last side down there and push it back into place. Now I can finally install the screw instead of struggle bussing. Yeah, 2 more for that side. And we basically complete the steps that we had before in reverse order. I end up using my manual screwdriver for a lot of this simply because of the fact that my powered one kind of died. It stopped working because the battery hadn't been charged yet, because I broke it out of the box and just started using it instead of putting it on the charger. And I wiggle so I don't strip. And what I mean by that is, instead of trying to just pull it out directly, I wiggle a little bit so I don't strip out those screws, those screw threads anyway. And then that way, that keeps everything semi-good for the next time. I think when I was putting the laptop back, I knocked a few screws out of the organizational little holes that they were in. So that's me just trying to figure out where the heck those are supposed to go. So those little springs I was telling you about. Looks like I'm going to try to put the Wi-Fi antenna in next. It was covered in cat hair, so that's just me trying to clean it off a little bit. You'll see me really struggle to pull that back in. I end up having to undo a screw on the fan, wiggle that cable, and pull with tweezers to get those cables out from underneath of the motherboard. Didn't end up piercing anything, didn't end up losing anything. Just really annoying. All right, so we're going to pick up pace here a little bit. Give me 1 second. All right, so you're going to start to see things move a lot faster here, just because it was going too slow before. So it's looking a little choppy in my video here as I'm editing. But anyway, I'm working on putting that Wi-Fi antenna back in. And this is what, as I told you, I was kind of struggling with getting those cables put in. So I pulled that screw. I lifted up that heat pipe on the actual underneath of the fan there. And I try to redirect it, but it doesn't work out as well. So I eventually end up just pulling that off. There's a little, Apple puts these little paper protector things over top of different components on the board where it's really not necessary. So I'm using my plastic spudger. Again, when you're working on or near the components of the motherboard that, where there's capacitors and things like that, try to use plastic as much as you can. There's going to be circumstances, obviously, where you can't, but if you're putting pressure on something and it could potentially slide into another component and short it out, you don't want to do that. You're going to end up having to pay for something that you don't want to pay for. So right here you can see I got the tip of one of the cables popping through there. As I told you before, this whole thing has to go through the frame and then underneath of the heat pipe there, and then somehow route back up above the motherboard. And the motherboard and heat pipe are essentially fused together. I don't know if Apple uses liquid metal or what, but I, in the past, have actually tried to just remove that entirely, and the thing doesn't come off. So rather than bend it and prevent airflow, you can see I'm getting a little frustrated here. And prevent airflow, what I do usually is just bend it slightly there, and then I'll tweeze those Wi-Fi cables back out. Those cables themselves are honestly pretty tough, so you're going to be hard-pressed to find an issue with tweezing them. Maybe don't use as sharp of tweezers. I have definitely sharper pairs than this pair that I'm using that are silver tweezers, and these black ones are pretty much ideal for this. So I've got 2 of the 3 pulled through. I got 1 more that has to come through. Oh no, now I'm actually attaching them to the board. So I think I made a mistake when trying to attach them to the board, because then I realized that screw hole needs to be aligned on top of the motherboard. So here we go again, trying to reattach to the board here. Those are some of the most frustrating connectors as well. Because they are, it almost seems like they're greased. When you go to put them in, they don't stay in one spot with your tweezers. So they're super freaking frustrating to actually have to hold on to and push down to the board. So I think I put that. I think everything is reattached to the board at this point. Now oh no, you can obviously tell I've got at least one cable that's not attached there. So what I'm doing is reattaching that screw for that Wi-Fi antenna, because they have a little screw at the base of the antenna where the cables come in, and you're supposed to actually screw that down to secure it on top of also securing the antenna cables back to the board. It's just me testing everything, pushing it back into place. Next step for me is resecuring the antenna back to the board. You'll see this is going to go pretty quickly. Almost as quickly as I removed it, which was fairly quick. Screwing everything in. I feel like I should put some hold music on this because it takes a while. But we're making progress. We get that antenna screwed back in. All 8 screws or 7 screws or whatever they go on the back of that antenna. It's ridiculous. This is why the whole right to repair thing is so important, because when you hit a certain point with Apple, it's really frustrating. I'm okay doing this kind of work, but all the little ribbon cables and all the little bits and bobs and everything. This is why labor on this job is so expensive. You take this to any shop and you say, hey, can you do a swap on my MacBook Pro 15-inch screen because I cracked it? One, your screen is going to be about $500 to $600, right? Because screens are expensive for these computers because they have the, I don't know if they have the AMOLED display, but they've got a True Tone. Apple's got some word for it. I don't know. I don't pay close enough attention. Anyway, they have these super special displays with deep tones and bright colors and everything, and they are beautiful displays. Don't get me wrong. It's great technology, but it's also really, really expensive. I'm honestly surprised these laptops don't cost more. Alrighty, so I got the Wi-Fi antenna screws put back in, and now I'm kind of evaluating. Let's see, I've got T4 in the screwdriver. What am I going to put down next? And I think the decision has been made. I'm putting down the springy cables next because they're the next easiest. Well, not next easiest. They're the next difficult thing to actually put in. So. And I'm using my, because those screws were stripped out pretty badly, I'm actually using my manual screwdriver for that. You know, I'm still waiting for my LTT precision screwdriver to come in. I ordered it like a day after release, and apparently they were already sold out. So, we'll see if that's a little smoother than this. I actually have really bad carpal tunnel, so using my manual screwdriver is not something I do very often. doubled up on the screws on that one. I always hate that when I accidentally bump the screw on the tip of the screwdriver. Just because I get it like threaded on there. Not threaded on there, but I get it. I get it onto the tip there just right, and then I'm ready to screw it in, and then if you bump it, you gotta restart. You kind of see, you have to hold back the main display cables, and the reason you have to do that is just because their natural tendency is to flip inward and rest down in there just like that. And so in order to keep them out of the way, that's what you have to do. Keep going. Come on. Sometimes I feel like even 200% isn't fast enough. This is taking forever. It feels like forever when you're voicing over. I'll just say that. How about that? It feels like forever when you're voicing over because you have to sit here and watch your own video and voice it. So I'm trying to get these screws in such a precise manner. Now I'm actually putting down the screws that hold in the entire, they hold down the entire of that LCD assembly back there. And there's 4 of them. There's 2 towards the outside and 2 in the middle. I think I got the 2 on the outside done, and then I was like, oh, crap. Yeah, right now I'm seating the ribbon cable for the actual screen, making sure that it's in there right. It always makes me freak out a little bit when I do that because it's never quite, it's a little smushy. I like something to click real well when you do that, and that didn't click real well. But it ended up working out anyway in the end, so. It was me trying to get thread the screw onto the tip of the bit there. My dog was laying on a piece of packaging paper back here earlier, and it was so loud because she likes to kick and move around in her sleep a lot. And now she's laying on a piece of bubble wrap. So I'm fully prepared for pops. Okay, so I put that, there's like a little retention thing that goes over top of the LCD cable to keep it in place. And then there's a second retention thing that goes over the actual connection point of that LCD cable to keep it seated down so that it doesn't accidentally pop up or come loose or anything like that. So those are both in place now. I'm putting in the final screws for everything. This jobby should be wrapping up here pretty quickly. I do a little bit of something nice for this guy, and I clean out the fans because it obviously will create a problem. I don't know if I do that. Oh yeah, I have to do stupid hinge covers. See, that's how little I care. I forgot about them until like the very last thing. But I put them back in because they were in there before. It's only 2 screws. 2 screws per cover. And honestly, I think that little ribbon cable I was talking about earlier, I don't think it's even covered by the hinge covers. Okay. 2 more screws for the other one. I don't mind that the camera wants to autofocus, but I do get kind of tired of the boop, 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 boop look. Looks like it's bubbling in and out. Very good, very good. Okay. All right. So now we've got, yep, I was going to put the back cover on, then I'm like, I'm going to help this guy out in my nasty shirt. When you have a day full of activities, oh yeah, I didn't use a toothbrush. I actually used one of my solder brushes. Look at all that dust fly off. Isn't that nasty? That's nasty. That is nasty. But I mean, it looks real good after I'm done. So, and no, I'm not just putting it into other parts of the computer. Actually, after I break it loose, I kind of blow on it, and then it all comes out. There you go. Right at the camera. Oh, I might have to slow-mo that one. Yummy. All right, now we put the back cover on. And this is a little challenging too, because you do have to get that shoved back into those hinge covers. I guess that's the purpose that they serve, is to latch the back in a way that's really unnecessary. So I suppose if you remove the hinge covers, maybe you wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. But yeah, you slide it down in place. Has to be just right so everything fits nice and tidy and pretty. And then I decided for this one, even though my battery was dying, and you'll see it struggle busting here in a minute, that I was going to use my automatic screwdriver. I'm also restocking my bits back into the box that the thing came in. It's actually a really cool screwdriver. I'll leave a link to it in the description of the video down below. But there we go. Screw that in. Screw that in. And you'll see it pause a couple times. That's just because I'm having to really like give it a break and then let it finish, because it's dying. Like I said, I bought the thing. It arrived on Saturday. I took it out of the box and I just started using it. I hadn't charged it at all. It's not doing this anymore. Put all the little screws back in. There's only 6 of them. It's actually pretty simple. Flip it over and you'll see in the video probably a little bit of the projection from out there in the theater room. My wife was watching Vampire Diaries. But there you go. My customer's computer is all done. All fixed up. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want more content like this. And check out my other videos.